Welcome back, folks. I'm pleased to announce that the darkest parts of this case that would have likely been buried if this were a few short years ago are hitting the MSM. Both Fox News and CNN interviewed Tony Buzbee regarding the 120-plus victims that have cases soon to be filed against Diddy and some of his high-profile associates. I'm going to play those short clips for you now before our feature presentation.
Troubles of Sean Diddy Combs appear to be growing tonight. CNN's Elizabeth Wagmeister reports.
More than 100 new accusers plan to pursue legal claims against Sean Diddy Combs, according to their attorney.
These were people that were there, that were allegedly drugged and then allegedly raped, passed around, woke up the next morning with just completely clueless about what had happened to them.
Combs denies the allegations, his lawyer telling CNN in part, Mr. Combs emphatically and categorically denies as false and defamatory any claim that he sexually abused anyone, including minors. Combs already faces a dozen civil lawsuits and has pleaded not guilty to charges of racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. Houston attorney Tony Buzbee tells CNN he intends to file individual lawsuits against Combs for each of the 120 new accusers, some who he says have already spoken to the FBI. Do you have video evidence of your clients allegedly being sexually abused?
It's full-on video of things happening that would never be appropriate for public viewing.
Buzbee says he's in the process of collecting video, photos, text messages, medical records, and drug tests. Many of your clients have alleged to you that they were given a horse tranquilizer.
You know, you hear that one time and you think that's really strange. You hear it 3 or 4 or 5 times, all of a sudden you're like, holy, well, what is going on here?
In the indictment, federal authorities also accuse Combs of drugging victims. They do not believe that Sean Combs acted alone.
I do agree with the FBI and the federal authorities. I do think that there were a lot of individuals involved and a lot of entities involved.
Household names, are we talking about celebrities, executives in the entertainment industry?
All the above, yes.
We've all heard about the white parties. Just because a celebrity is photographed wearing white at a Sean Combs party does not mean that they are complicit in any criminal activity.
The white party comes up quite often and typically later in the night with the same MO, a drink laced with something in some cases.
Was this all happening in plain sight at these parties?
That's the allegation, that people saw exactly what was going on and did nothing about it.
Now, Wolf, the attorney tells me that out of the 120 accusers, 60 are men and 60 are women. 25 of them allege they were minors at the time.
Elizabeth Wagmeister, thanks very much for that report, and thanks to our viewers for watching.
Since the day Diddy was indicted for sex trafficking and racketeering, we've been warning you he's just the tip of the iceberg. Today, we're being told a list of Diddy's accomplices will drop very soon. Powerhouse attorney Tony Buzbee just announced that more than 100 people are filing lawsuits against Diddy and others for sexual abuse. 24 of the victims are minors, one of them as young as 9 years old. Diddy allegedly used the promise of a record deal to lure that young victim to his recording studio, where the child was assaulted by Diddy and several others. Diddy's team says the allegations are meritless. But Buzbee says his upcoming lawsuits will be naming names.
The day will come when we will name names other than Sean Combs, and there's a lot of names. The names that we're going to name, assuming that our investigators confirm and corroborate what we've been told, are names that will shock you. They already know who they are. And I'm talking here about not just the cowardly but complicit bystanders. That is, those people that we know watched this behavior occur and did nothing. And I'm talking about the people that participated, encouraged it, egged it on. They know who they are. These defendants will not only include individuals, but would also include corporate entities who ultimately profited off of this culture and behavior. I'm looking at banks, pharmaceutical companies, hotels.
This string of lawsuits could shake up the top levels of corporate America and Hollywood. Another lawyer says some of Diddy's secret sex tapes are being shopped around. The tape features an A-list celebrity who doesn't seem to realize they were being recorded. Tony Buzbee is one of the attorneys representing over 120 Diddy accusers. Well, Counselor, thank you for taking this case. This is very important, and we need justice served, especially now that we're hearing there's a victim as young as 9 years old. Are you kidding me?
9, 12, 13, 14, 15. We're talking about 25 people so far out of 120 cases that we intend to file. I would expect there'll be a lot more cases than that. Let's not forget we're talking about behavior that took place over more than 25 years all over the United States, but primarily in New York, California, and Miami.
And some of these names that I guess will be coming out, who allegedly aided and abetted Diddy and his twisted little escapades, are these names that I would know, that people would recognize? How high is this going up?
Certainly names that you would recognize. And let's think about the kind of people that would be involved in this. People that would be in the room, that would be facilitating this, egging this kind of thing on, encouraging this, participating, venues that were participating, sponsors, hotels, banks. Let's remember that a lot of people were being flown in from across the country and paid in cash. Obviously, that cash had to come somewhere. There had to be some explanation for taking out that much cash from the bank. We already know that there were a lot of drugs in play. So there are many facets of this. There are many people involved. There are many entities involved. And, the ones that really irk me, there's been a lot of focus on, well, who are the celebrities? Who are the celebrities? What I'm more focused on, obviously, to the extent there's a celebrity that it occurred at their house or that they were involved or participated, they will certainly be named. But what really irks me are those who profited off of this culture that was created and that just essentially ruined hundreds of lives.
And we're talking banks, we're talking record executives?
Record executives, record companies, other companies that were sponsors of some of these parties and after parties, clubs, hotels, you name it. This conduct was, this wasn't an annual party. This individual allegedly was partying 3 or 4 times a week, and these parties were wild. They were beyond your imagination, and they were nasty. And there were a lot of things going on that should not go on, and a lot of victims that were being subjected to exploitation and all kinds of sexual conduct that people just should not be subjected to.
All right, well, hopefully more people, alleged victims, come forward and we get the full accountability, because we want everybody who was complicit in this to pay a price if they were. Buzbee, thank you so much.
Next up, we have the legendary Chris Hansen interviewing Buzbee, which couldn't be any more perfect for the generation most familiar with Diddy during his peak of fame. If you don't know who Chris Hansen is, he used to host a show called To Catch Predator, very similar to the Predator Hunter content we see today. But his TV show was canceled after they caught a Texas district attorney by the name of Bill Conrad attempting to consort with a 13-year-old boy. After being served with a search warrant, Bill ended his life. Tony Buzbee, on the other hand, and if you didn't know already, is the lead counsel for these 120-plus victims. So without further ado...
Coming up, an interview with the lawyer representing more than 100 victims of Sean Diddy Combs, some of whom were underage. It seems not a moment goes by without another very disturbing allegation against the music impresario Sean Diddy Combs, now being accused by Homeland Security and federal prosecutors of operating a major human trafficking and sex exploitation ring. And Tony Buzbee, who's a lawyer based in Houston, Texas, represents now more than 100 survivors, victims, allegedly, of Diddy. And Mr. Buzbee joins me now from Houston. Sir, thank you for being with us today.
Glad to be here. Chris, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. Disturbed by all this, though. We've been investigating predators for for decades now, and I'm at a loss to describe an alleged case this big, this violent, and this disturbing. How do you get your arms around representing more than 100 alleged victims, survivors of one man?
It's difficult. It's obviously very administrative intensive. You have to treat each one of these cases on its own merit. We've received, at this point, 3,500 calls of people who either claim to be victimized by Sean Combs or have information they want to share about him, some sort of interaction they had with him and things that they saw. So it's very tough. We have about 90 people who are attempting to vet these claims on the front end. And then we have retired Houston police officers, including people that were in the major crimes unit here, who are assisting us in running down witnesses, collecting texts, pictures, video, that sort of thing. We want to make sure, because it's such a high profile case, because there's a lot of media attention, we want to make sure that it's done by the numbers and done correctly. So, we've been working on this probably for 6 months. Obviously, after the indictment and specifically after Sean Combs's bail was denied for the second time, I think that kind of opened the floodgates. I think people are very, very fearful of Sean Combs and his entourage. He's perceived to be, connected with some sort of criminal element on the one hand, but also very friendly with people who in power and also with other celebrities. So he's very quick. These victims will tell you that when they would cry out or complain about certain things, he would be very quick to make these either explicit threats or implicit threats about them speaking to anyone about the conduct that they had seen or been involved in. So, the floodgate.
I think you raise a critical point here, Mr. Buzbee, in that one of the reasons his bail was denied was because of this allegation of violent witness tampering.
Yeah.
And now that he's clearly going to be held without bail, based upon what we've seen in the courts in New York, it would seem that a lot of these victims would feel safe coming forward. But it speaks to the violence alleged in these allegations.
Yeah, I mean, there are some of these victims that were on the receiving end of some very, not implicit, but very direct violence against them.
This would be an incredibly difficult task, especially if they're filing each suit individually for each victim, rather than a class action lawsuit. To find that balance between being detail-oriented and thorough with each case, but while also doing so in a timely manner, striking while the burner's hot, so to speak, the longer it takes to put these cases together and file, the longer Diddy and his counsel have to work on their defense, and the more time witnesses and victims have a chance to mysteriously disappear.
But there's an MO here. When you look at the range of these cases and what has been alleged, you kind of see an overwhelming theme, which is, he identifies somebody that he wants to either have sexual contact with, or he wants his cohorts to have sexual contact with. They are ultimately drugged in some way, typically through a drink, and then they end up, being murky, not understanding what's going on, and wake up the next morning, in some cases, without their clothes or shoes, confused, injured, and not knowing what to do. That is a reoccurring theme. And so how this was able to go on for so long, it's hard to fathom, because we know that a lot of this conduct occurred at venues, whether it be hotels, clubs, after parties, famous people's homes, publicized parties that are all over the internet. We can see the clips from them. And if you look at interviews that people that attended the party, when they get to the point of asking about certain things that would kind of get close to some of the conduct we're talking about, they go quiet. So this was a secret in the industry that everyone knew about. And I'm just very proud that the chips have started to fall. The Cassie case, I think, was kind of the beginning of this, and then the investigation, and then the indictment, and then the arrest, and then the bail being denied, and now people are coming forward. In fact, we published a phone number for abuse hotline yesterday, and it literally crashed. We had so many calls. So we have a great task in front of us of trying to sift through whether these folks who are calling are victims or have information, or just, you obviously that in these types of situations, there's people that just call for, and crank and that sort of thing. We have to sift through that, and we're going to do that. But I expect we'll start filing cases in New York federal court in the next 2 weeks to 30 days. And I expect we're going to be joining defendants in these cases that are going to raise some eyebrows. And I look forward to, following this evidence wherever it goes. And whoever.
Which begs the question, Mr. Buzbee, and you bring up one of the points that intrigues me and a lot of other people so much, is that other people in the music industry had to know, perhaps even cover up, and as you may allege in the future, have taken a role in allowing Combs to do.
It's my view that if you were in the room, a minor's in the room being abused, and you allowed it to happen, you have liability. It's my view that if you facilitated or egged that on in some way, you have liability. It's my view that if you provided the venue, knowing how he was and the things that he was doing, along with the people that he was with, you have liability. It's my view that if you knew as a hotel owner that he was renting out an entire floor, and there were people appearing, multiple people, young women and young men, who were appearing at the front desk, and you were not taking down their name and you were sending them directly to his floor, you have liability. It's my view that if you're a bank and you knew that he was withdrawing hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash that was being used to pay for people to be shipped from all across the country and trafficked, you have liability. I mean, I think the facets of this, and everybody's really tuned into, who are the celebrities that might be named. But in my view, the more sinister element of this is all the corporations that benefited from this, and the venues that benefited from this, and the people that profited from this culture that he created. And I look forward to peeling back every layer of that onion so we can all see what was going on here.
Amen, brother. Go for the jugular. Take them all down. There had to be a lot of blind eyes being turned in order for Diddy to go about his business, and definitely, like Tony said, a lot of people and businesses profited from this and should absolutely be held liable.
And there is precedent for this. JP Morgan Chase was held liable in the Epstein case, as I'm sure you know, and in human trafficking cases around the country, hotel chains, major companies, have been held responsible for allowing this sort of human trafficking activity to occur on their properties.
Yeah, we know from the victims that it was routine for the so-called atmosphere. They had what they called atmosphere girls who would be shipped in, paid $10,000 per person to be there, and then coerced and bullied, and in some cases forced to do certain things that they didn't anticipate that they were supposed to be doing, and then held there, not allowed to leave. I mean, this is the kind of thing that was going on. It was going on at the same time that a lot of people, they were taking pictures. It's going on like literally right next to them. And some of the same pictures that you see on Instagram and other social media platforms. I think this is going to be even bigger than people can imagine.
This is the part I don't think a lot of people are getting, where the line of consent is drawn for paid entertainers. These atmosphere girls were led into the party with high pay and told they were there to dance and chat with the guests. And their first few jobs would be during the first party, and all would be kosher. But then for those who were kept after hours for these freak-offs, if they weren't consenting, they were being threatened and pressured into doing things they didn't want to do. And that's not okay. They also witnessed a lot of not okay things. And when 55% of these 100-plus victims had tried to make reports with police, it fell on deaf ears, which is also not okay.
Give me a sense of the volume of videotape and photographic evidence and recordings you have.
We are still sifting through hundreds of pictures and video. Some of it, it's without context. It's hard to even know what this even means, or how does this fit into the picture. I've been sent just unsolicited via email and direct message on social media, videos and pictures and stuff. So we're trying to sift through all that. So I couldn't even give you an estimate. Yesterday there was an individual who, of course, did not want to reveal who she was, but was texting me just video after video after video from some of these so-called freak-offs. And I'm just looking at this stuff like, man, I wish this weren't on my phone, number one. And number two,
she was texting you on your personal phone.
Yeah.
Videos of these freak-offs.
Yeah. Yeah. And
what does that say to you that somebody unsolicited feels so strongly about what's happened to her and others that she would send this material to you?
Yeah, and I'm trying to, and here I am trying to figure out. First off, I don't want this stuff on my phone, but laying that.
No, of course not.
I'm trying to figure out the context. Like, who are these people doing these things that you would typically wouldn't see, and obviously you couldn't show it to anybody in public. It's pretty graphic, but I've had, we have this large team of people trying to field all these calls and all these media or this internet contact. And, trying to sift through that and screen that and get people to the next level to start talking to lawyers. And the difficulty, as you might expect, is what you want to do is you want to make sure that people believe, like you are believed. Okay. We believe victims. We're not here to cross-examine you at this point. We're not here to be skeptical. But at some point we have to be, because as you know, these are very difficult cases. These are difficult cases going against a powerful group of people. So at some point, when they get to the third level, hard questions have to be asked. And so there's a balance we have to cut here. We have to, on the one hand, make sure that people understand that we believe you. We want to hear what you have to say. We want to hear your story. We want to represent you and help you if we can. On the other hand, you need to understand that this is not going to be a cakewalk. This is going to be, there's going to be a lot of attention on this, and they're going to fight us tooth and nail. And the first defense is going to be, we don't know who you are, and you're just here to try to get money. And the second defense is, well, if you've proven that we were in the same room together, but we didn't do anything to you. And the entire defense is going to be, we're going to attack your character and your lawyer's character, and we're going to attack, from the very beginning. So I've been down this road before. It's a difficult road, but the fact that we have 120 people who are willing to step forward, who have been vetted now and are ready and willing and able to file their case. We're going to file them under the Jane Doe or the John Doe pseudonym, but we understand that eventually their names will be made public. I'm encouraging them to talk to the Homeland Security and the FBI. I'm encouraging them to allow me to share their names and their information with the authorities. I'm encouraging them that at some point, let's step in front of a camera and let's tell your story, because there's probably many other people out there who, if they see you on the camera and they hear what you have to say and it happened to them, they'll step forward too. So that's kind of where we are in this. And, we're at the tip of the iceberg.
That's a pretty good clue as to who we can expect to be revealed. We know those who are frequent attendees to these parties. And since they're all so full of themselves, there's already so much photo evidence of every party and all those who were in close contact repeatedly at every party. These photographers go up to people standing together and chatting. That's how they get that photo op. So if the same people are frequently photographed together, it definitely is a lot harder for each person to claim that they didn't know Diddy well or hadn't been to that many parties. Any plausible deniability they may try to have as defense can easily be crushed with what is already very highly publicized evidence. Then on top of that, to have waves of media and other material being sent that Tony and his team can use to build new cases and likely corroborate and solidify the existing cases.
How many of your victims, Mr. Buzbee, were underage, were minors at the time of the offenses?
25 of the 120.
25?
25. Talking about, and you would think that we're talking about females, but I was surprised because I just expected these were all females. But of the 120 people, half are males. And of the minors, about half are males as well. We have a young man who was 9 years old at the time this occurred.
9 years old, Mr. Buzbee.
9 years old, 13 years old, 14 years old, a 15-year-old. All of these are, with one exception, young men who were trying to break into the industry. The 9-year-old young man was essentially, his parents responded to some sort of advertisement. Somebody was recruiting young people to break into the industry, and he made the various screening mechanisms they had, and him along with 4 other boys went and were able to meet Sean Combs. And his parents essentially handed him off to Sean Combs. And they alleged that they handed him off, and Sean Combs had his way with this child by coercing him and pressuring him and promising him things. And, to the point now that just devastated this young man's life, who, he doesn't want to have anything to do with music. I mean, it was his dream to be a musician, doesn't want to have anything to do with music. Of course, his parents have shame and guilt because they helped facilitate that. And that's kind of a typical story of what we're talking about here. And I think it goes without saying that, and it shouldn't be this way, but it is this way, that it's even more difficult for a young man to come forward when this happens to him, because there is a stigma involved in that. So this is what we're dealing with, and at the same time trying to be sensitive. We've got to be aggressive and pursue the case and make sure we leave no stone unturned, and we gather all the evidence and we ask the hard questions of the clients. But on the other hand, we have to be sensitive, because this is tough stuff, and this young man's been living with this for a long time.
I can't imagine the shame, the degradation, the absolute destruction of a child's life being exposed to this at the age of 9.
You think about, this, at the time this happened, this allegedly happened, Sean Combs was the top of the music industry. It was well known that if he liked you, he could make you a star. And that's what the parents were excited about. Obviously, the young man was excited about. And then this happens. It's like he's just on the scrap heap of history, if you will. Just devastates. I don't want to be too pessimistic, because my hope is that the young man has a long, productive life. But boy, it's hard when something like this happens to you.
I'm not sure there's any worse crime in this world. To not only take away one's soul, but to destroy their dreams and what they're passionate about. From great suffering comes great art. So when people create, whether it's physical art or music, what have you, that's an outlet for whatever joy and whatever pain one may feel. If that outlet is poisoned and shattered and becomes a trauma in and of itself, we owe Justin Bieber a massive apology for when he was rebelling and really going through it, and the media made him out to be some spoiled and crazy teenager. And then when he would break down in tears at a concert and people would make fun of him, may all the youths that have crossed paths with Diddy get their justice.
In terms of predatory behavior, you've investigated victims whom you've represented. Where does this case rank, Mr. Buzbee?
A lot of the cases that I've had, the conduct has been secret, private. There were some suspicions, but it was private. And it was usually one person on one person. And of course, when you have this predilection like this, it happens over and over. It doesn't just happen once. Typically, when something like this happens, you can bet that it's probably happened more than once. What's different about this case, in my view, is that this was not a secret. I mean, some of this behavior was happening in the presence, and I'm not just talking about in the presence, because Sean Combs never went anywhere without bodyguards, never went anywhere, never traveled anywhere without some sort of entourage or posse, if you will. And certainly those people knew what he was up to and knew what his inclinations were. But what's more disturbing about this is that at some of these after parties weren't just 4 or 5 people. These after parties were people that knew that about 1 o'clock, there was going to be a shift in this party, and things were going to be different. This was not going to be, the party that you see on Instagram and so forth. I mean, some of the conduct occurred during the main party, but the most sinister conduct occurred in the so-called after parties, and those were not small affairs. And so you wonder, you have people of note, people who are known, who attended some of these and knew about some of this behavior going on. I mean, there was no secret that people were being flown in. I mean, there's no way you could not know that unless you were there's just no way you could not know that. And the things that were going on in the presence of people of names that we've all heard, in venues that we all know, in people's homes that we all know, and how it went on for 25 or more years. without anybody saying anything. You've heard some celebrities say, hey, I would never go to a Diddy party. There's a group of celebrities out there who are making that more and more well known because obviously what's going on. But how did this go on for so long without anyone saying, enough is enough of this? I'm going to speak out about this. I know he's a powerful person. I know he's connected with some powerful people. I know that, politically he's even connected, and maybe there's an element of some sort of criminal element here that could be a danger. But I'm going to say something because what I'm seeing is not correct. It's not right. And I don't want to be a part of it, and I don't want to be associated with it. But you never heard that. You heard people like Cat Williams who have said some things years back. 50 Cent has said some things about that. You've heard interviews here and there about when people ask about Sean Combs's parties, they grow silent and it's kind of hush hush. I can't talk about that. But why didn't they ever say something? Why did they allow this to happen and continue to happen? It's my view that if you continue to attend those parties knowing what was going on and not saying anything, how are you not complicit in some way?
Do you have witnesses, insiders who are willing to cooperate in this case?
I think so. I also think that certainly have witnesses who saw this, who weren't involved, but are willing, who have nothing to gain, who are willing to talk.
This is where we can give them the benefit of the doubt. People were afraid to talk. Diddy was violent and made threats, and countless people mysteriously died from within his sphere, including the mother of some of his children, Kim Porter. It really just goes to show that all those cases need to be reopened. Any that Diddy could have had any shred of a role in.
I expect that some of the people that were the closest to Sean Combs, who are with him at all times, will probably talk. I think, the federal government is really good, as you know, at getting people who are not the targets to talk. I expect that'll happen. I expect the indictment and the charges in the indictment will grow. I expect that other people will be implicated. So I think that, like I say, I think we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg here. And, what I'm most interested in is every single person who is victimized come forward now. There's a reason that New York State and California have very long statutes of limitation for these types of crimes, because people are very, very, if they don't cry out immediately.
I'm sorry, very much sorry. The Space Jam theme song was probably not at all appropriate. But hear me out. I've never been into sports, but I can imagine this feeling right now is like how people feel when their team is winning the big event. This is the kind of thing we need to be cheering on and celebrating. I'm beyond ecstatic about the turning of the tides. Red pills for everyone. Okay, for real now. Let's get back to serious business. This is a serious matter, but I don't think I've felt this much pure, unadulterated joy in a long time.
Then it gets harder and harder as time passes for them to come forward, because they're going to be, the first thing people say is, why didn't you come out immediately? Because a lot of people don't understand how hard it is to say, hey, this person did this to me, because there may be financial repercussions, safety concerns, family repercussions, backlash from their community. People can be, there's a reason for this, this word fan is short for fanatics. And people can be really mean and nasty. And when you're dealing with an alleged criminal element, people should fear.
Blowback.
Yeah, there's blowback. And, even for me, I've been, you can only imagine, I'm sure for you too, the kind of messages you get on social media of people, they're going to do this to you and they're going to do that, or to your wife. And, I've had, my wife told me last night, we're going to have to get, because I have security at my house, but you're going to have to have 24-hour security. I'm thinking, come on, that's just a bunch of foolishness. But who knows?
It's real. I've seen it personally. And you're out there trying to do the right thing and expose evil actors, and there can be blowback from those people and their associates.
Well, good thing there are a lot more people like me these days who are fanatical about saving the damn children and the children of the damned.
There's no question. What, before I let you go, Mr. Buzbee, and I know you're a busy fellow, one last question. What does this say about this particular segment of the music industry that, as you have said and has been proved, look the other way on this?
I call it the facilitators. Obviously the people that participated in this are terrible actions and terrible conduct and should be prosecuted and put underneath the jail. But what really irks me are the people that saw this happening, that enjoyed themselves while it was happening, that fancied themselves as upstanding people and knew this was happening and continue to go to these parties knowing this was going to happen, and that were, in my view, are just as complicit. And whether they can be criminally charged or even civilly sued, these people should know that they knew and they didn't do anything about it.
Tony Buzbee from Houston, thank you very much for spending all this time and taking us inside this investigation. I promise you we will stay in touch and we will continue our work on our end as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chris.
Well, there you have it, folks. Two legends meeting over a noble cause. I'm going to be keeping my thumb on the jugular of this ugly head of society, so please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the flip side.